Nina Khaimova. Thank you for having me and for giving me a spot and some of your time tonight. I'm gonna keep it short, but I want to try to say as much as I can, not just da-da-da, and that's what you need, that's what you should do. But I want to give a little bit of my background and why I think it's important to have this conversation and discuss this topic. So I'm an immigrant child. I came here when I was 10 years old in '96, and my parents, when they came here, as with most of our community members, we had the goal of making a living, or as we now say in America, living the American dream. What's the American dream? Creating a career, making a family, having kids, and ultimately flourishing, right? But now, as I'm getting older and as I'm building my own family, I look back and, thank God my parents are of a certain age. All of us should be healthy always, but there is certain planning that we have to do, right? How do we get to that point of planning is, we start living, we start building a career. For me, for my parents, it was very important that we all get educated, just like all of our community members wish and hope for their kids to be educated. And I actually didn't want to be a lawyer initially. I was supposed to go into the medical field, but my father, God bless him, kind of like pushed me to do something that's a little bit more challenging. And here I am, like I graduated and I became an attorney. I used to practice real estate. But what was always interesting to me when I was doing real estate, and I was doing foreclosures for banks, which is very, very mainstream. There's, not always so much excitement, but there would be cases that I would come across where, the borrower or the homeowner passed away. And for us, it was like a challenging file. So that's like my first time when I started to look into this area of the law, and it was very, very interesting to me. The words estate planning is not something that's like easily or right away understood by people, whether it's people from our community or outside of our community. People always ask me, what is that? Which is a completely valid question. I was actually thinking, how do I translate it to Russian? But basically, это планировка имущества, right? So, что мы планируем? A lot of people, у них misconception, у меня ничего нету, мне это ничего не надо, I don't have to deal with it. But I completely disagree with it. First of all, we have to think about it, and not just when we're older, we have to think about it when, like my age, people in their 20s and 30s and 40s, when we have young kids, we have to have something written down that if, God forbid, again, we should all live until 120 and we should be absolutely fine, but if, God forbid, something happens, there has to be a plan. So my example from my life that I always use, my husband and I decided to go on vacation. It was like the first time we were fortunate enough to leave our kids behind, and our in-laws and my parents were helpful. And the night before, I'm like, this is not sitting right. It's not, как говорится, like, я сапожник без сапог, or whatever that phrase is. Like, yeah, I'm doing this for people. I'm telling them, I'm encouraging, это нужно сделать, это правильно сделать, and all of that. А сама, like, I don't have a plan in place. So I told my husband, it doesn't take much, I know what to do, let's put together a will, just a basic will. We have our aunt and uncle across the street, we're going to use them as witnesses. You need 2 witnesses to sign a will. I said, let's put it together. Most important 2 things, у нас дом, and at that time we had like an apartment, like we had some assets, and really it wasn't that so much as it was the kids. The kids were like, I think the oldest was 10 and the youngest was 3 or 4 at the time. So listen, you watch the news and there's airplane crashes all the time. Again, God forbid, чтобы от нас это было далеко. But I'd rather, in that moment, I was like, let me write it down. Лучше пускай будет, чем чтобы вообще ничего не было. I picked up the phone and I called whoever is going to be my executor of the will, который руководит это завещание и проведет это через суд, surrogate court. I said, this is your, designation in the will. And I called the person that I decided is going to be guardian of my kids. And I said, if God forbid something happens, you're taking care of my kids. It was not pleasant, but it was relieving. Okay, so that's one perspective where I talk to clients and I don't tell them, oh, it's okay, you know, you're young, don't worry about it. No, if you have underage children, make at least a will. I encourage people to do trusts, and I'll get to that in a little bit, but at least put together a will so that someone is going to take care of your kids. And I stress that point more than anything because thinking about the financials is important, and we'll get to it, but I think underage kids, the problem with not having a plan for them is, and I recognize the age of all of you here today, but it's whether it's grandkids or your kids, right? The problem with not having anything written down for taking care of your kids, for designating a guardian, is what's gonna be in that place if God forbid something happens. And it's like, I like to speak from my example. Like in my example, like my parents are, God bless them, they're in their 70s. They're not a good candidate, although I'm sure they'll drop everything and help me, but they're not the best candidate to take care of smaller kids. I would rather choose someone that I know is better for that situation. But let's say I didn't write anything down, and let's say not me, but a person happens to have passed away and they left kids behind.
Like Charlie Kirk, for example.
Well, he has a wife, but yeah, let's say his wife and him. Let's use Charlie Kirk. God bless his wife, she seems to have a lot in front of her. They have a 3-year-old and a 10-month-old. Okay,
She's pregnant. That's what I did. Oh, wow.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Hopefully.
I saw that too.
That's insane. Oh, God bless that woman. But essentially, let's say a couple is gone and their kids are left, or a single mom, a single parent, a single father, whatever. С этой стороны встали родственники, и мы хотим этих детей. Теперь никто их не делит, или nobody says anything. And then what happens to the kids? Then the state steps in. So I'm not trying to scare, I just have to state what the facts are, the reality, right? So that's one big aspect of why we have to think about estate planning. The other aspect, and maybe a lot of you have read about it or already like kind of came across it, is people call it Medicaid planning. And the response I get sometimes is, oh, I'm not going to be Medicaid eligible. I've been working my whole life. My Social Security is going to disqualify me from income eligibility for Medicaid, and so on and so forth. So it's very important to Medicaid plan. Okay, there is no such thing as I'm not going to be eligible. As attorneys, we have to create a plan where if there's a chance, we want you to be ready for that. Okay. And I like to speak by example if it's okay, because I think it kind of puts things in perspective. For example, and for Medicaid planning, we have to do irrevocable trust. The difference between revocable and irrevocable is if I create a revocable trust, I have control, I can change it. Irrevocable, I don't have control. I've relinquished control to the trustee. The trustee is taking care of the property, but I have the right to live in the property. I have the right to collect income, to collect rent. So I basically reap all the benefits within the guidelines of Medicaid, but I cannot call that property my own anymore, because then that will disqualify me from Medicaid, right? So, for example, if let's say I set up a revocable trust and I am now, 59, okay, and I'm okay, I'm doing whatever I have to do, I'm changing the trust, I'm adding to the trust, I'm taking away from the trust, but I fail to, let's say, 5 years from 59, or maybe even earlier than that, I fail to go back to my attorney and update my estate plan. Okay, or I don't have anything at all. I don't go to my attorney to tell him that I need to estate plan with Medicaid in mind. So what could happen is I need to go into a nursing home. I know and I wish that nobody has to ever go to a nursing home. Maybe we all at 120, lay down, go to sleep, close our eyes, and that's it.
But there's still people in the
But in reality, and some people say, oh, my kids are gonna take care of me. Yes, God willing, our kids, I hope we did the right thing by them. But if I'm in a situation where home care is just not enough anymore, I need to be in a nursing home, or I am at home and I need all those services at home. So in order to qualify for that, that's also part of Medicaid long-term care. The reason why I mentioned like 59, 65 and all of that is in order to qualify for Medicaid long-term, there's a look back of 5 years, which means if at 65, well, not 65, hopefully much later, like 88, I need to get nursing home care or whatever, and I didn't make an estate plan or I didn't update it to put my assets into the irrevocable trust, or I did it at 87 and at 88 I got sick and now I need whatever services I need, the 5-year look back blocks me from being Medicaid eligible. So I encourage everyone, if we're talking about kids and the younger parent planning, then we discussed it, right? Guardianship is what it's called, is to designate a guardian for your children. If we're talking about a person who's older, a little bit older, and has already certain assets that are accumulating, a home, an investment property, a business, or whatever it may be, we need to start talking. And if you don't have underage kids, let's say you don't want to plan for Medicaid, fine. Although I still put it on the table to have people think about it. Make an estate plan. Even if it's the bare minimum, even if it's just a will. Trust is the best because a trust avoids probate. You don't have to take the trust to surrogate's court in order for it to be an active document, in order for it to work. The trust starts working the minute we fund it, the minute we put $1 in that bank account, or the minute we do that deed that transfers the house into the trust. It's functioning, and it's gonna function beyond our death, beyond our 120. A will has to be probate. That means the person has to die. The executor has to pick it up, has to be the original. Some people don't know where the original is. Some people make the naive mistake of putting an original will in a safety deposit box. And side note, don't have safety deposit boxes, please. But then you have to look for it. So it creates a whole, back and forth. But let's say you decided to just do a will. Your executor takes it to court to probate it. Takes months for the judge to sign, because we all have judges that we have to wait for to sign whatever, letters testamentary to probate the will. And only when the judge signs it, can that executor now go and say, okay, this daughter gets this son gets that, and so on and so forth, and distributes the properties of the assets of the will. I prefer a trust because I don't have to deal with court. Okay? Trust avoids probate. And I say it in very simple terms for my clients. A will does not function, it does not start to function until a person dies, and you can't even do anything until the judge allows you to do anything. The trust, once you sign it, you fund it, it's working. It's good. Okay? I think I covered the major points of why estate planning is important. Questions, comments.
I have a question.
When you mentioned about irrevocable trust for the Medicaid, it's only when you have to go to the nursing home, or there's in order to apply for the Medicaid, let's say, insurance?
So the laws are always changing, and what the New York State HRA implemented in 2020. So before, the way it used to be was a person could remove property from himself, right? Put it in a trust, or some people would make the decision to gift it to their kids without a trust, which I can get into later. But they would take everything away, and they would apply for Medicaid.
years.
There was no look back. So
Okay,
you're
no.
talking about community Medicaid, not long-term nursing home Medicaid.
Not nursing home, but
Insurance.
that's just insurance, the Medicaid.
It's called
But-
community Medicaid. Now we don't have that anymore. It's now a 30-month look back, which is
30
2 and a
months,
half
which
years.
is, yeah, okay.
But
Not
what
5
is
years.
Medicaid? What do we mean by
Medical
most of the
insurance.
people working here and who have like we're gonna have a pension or whatever. I'm sorry, I'm not looking at
That's
the
fine.
department. But what is that? Can you please explain
Absolutely.
what do we need Medicaid for and how does it work?
Okay, so right, so it's long. So I'm gonna. I'm happy that Hila, you made that distinction, because there's like, look at it as two separate branches. There's the community-based Medicaid, который малые имущие, мало зарабатывают, и им Medicaid подлежит, which is really, they're making less than what, 2,000 a month. It's really low, right? Which you're right, most of us don't qualify for if we hold decent paying jobs. But then there's the long-term Medicaid, and let me explain it to you this way. It's good that you have this job that's gonna give you a pension, that you're gonna have Social Security, so on and so forth. But is it enough? For, and God forbid, it shouldn't be the case, but is it gonna be enough if a person does need that long-term care, whether it's nursing home or at home? So in that regard, we want Medicaid, because Medicaid helps pay for nursing home, for care at home, for the home, whatever it is. Medicaid is our best option. Your health insurance, I don't know how well it's planned in order for you to give you that maximum care that is affordable, right? So you might still have it might still cover, but is it going to cover everything? Remember, after 65, 67, we're Medicare eligible, which is what we paid for during our working years. So then it's going to be Medicare and additional insurance. Again, God forbid, none of us should ever get sick, but if there is a need, I don't think insurance will be enough, which is why we encourage Medicaid planning.
And it works together with Medicare or whatever
Yes.
insurance, or
Yeah.
you have to have either or.
Either or what?
Either
Coverage.
Medicaid or the other
So you're-
coverages, or
Medicare,
you
I
have
think,
both.
comes
We're gonna do,
Separate, right?
you would rather Medicaid. And the other part of it is we mentioned income. I'm covering mostly assets, right? Because in order to be eligible for Medicaid, you need to make sure that your income is below the threshold, and that your assets are basically you right? So if your Social Security or your pension or whatever is higher than that Medicaid threshold, then there's a type of trust that's called a pooled income trust, where your income is absorbed by that trust. It's usually not for profit. It's not like a trust that you set up with your kids or whoever who's the trustee. All of that. It's a pooled income trust set up with nonprofit, and they essentially limit down your income to be Medicaid eligible, but you have access to that extra, we call it surplus, you have access to that through that pooled income trust.
So
Okay.
can I ask you this question? So you're basically doing the irrevocable trust, right?
Irrevocable for
Irrevocable
Medicaid
trust,
planning, yes.
But let's say your Social Security is not low, it's kind of
high.
high, and then you have 401k coming in, so you have to open another trust within the
pooled-
trust, right?
pooled income.
In order to absorb the income.
Totally separate with a nonprofit organization. pooled
Okay,
income
but
trust.
can you do that immediately when you're doing irrevocable trust? Like, can you open like two simultaneously, or you have to wait until
You
you
have
have?
to be right. You have to be in.
Wait.
Yeah, you would have to
But
wait.
what if, let's say I, God forbid, losing my job, right? And like in 5 years, I wanted to retire and get Medicaid because I don't have other insurance,
Mhm.
right? So, and my Social Security starts kicking in at 65.
Right.
So what happened from 59 to 65?
So
Do I stay in a revocable trust? until the 65 and then open another trust, or how does it?
Wait, let me understand your question. You lost your job. Why? They just fired you? Like
No, the company's
you
closed.
lost your job,
Company's closed. I
okay.
didn't find another job. Let's say I don't have insurance because
Be Medicaid eligible because you have a low income.
But do I have to
But
wait
because
3
of the
months? Do I have to wait 3 years?
You don't have to do pooled income trust. Your
No.
income is
Do I
low.
have to wait 2 years for them to look back? Because I did work until that period. You know what I mean? So
They
I have
won't look back on everyone.
Okay.
It's just gonna be okay in those 30 months. What happened? What assets did you have? What income
But
did
it
you
goes
have?
to the
whatever.
irrevocable trust. That my assets they go in irrevocable
The
trust.
earlier you do it, the better.
Yeah, the better. Yeah.
I
right,
have
right.
2 questions. Number one, when you talk about assets, do you also talk about your primary residence? They also
Yes.
look at the primary.
Yes.
Okay, and my second question: if you do the trust with irrevocable trust, do you still need the will?
No, I don't think so, right?
So let me answer both questions.
I think
Your first question was, are we including primary residence? So Medicaid allows us to own in our name primary residence, but it's up to a certain limit. I think they raised it to maybe close to 1.1 million in value. Okay, which thankfully, value in New York goes up significantly every year. So, if a client tells me, well, my house is worth $950,000, I don't have to worry about it. And I'm like, well, no, this is
20
exactly
years.
when we should do it, because when it's going to be an issue, it might be worth more. Okay? And again, you're going to be stuck where it's valued higher and you're not going to be Medicaid eligible. Okay, so definitely move your primary residence into that irrevocable trust. You still keep the benefits that you would keep. Nobody can kick you out. You get what's called a life estate. You live if the trustee, whoever you choose as the trustee,
For example, you choose your child. So
right,
the child can always sell the property and give you the money.
can't without you. You're a life tenant. In order for that buyer to get the house transferred to them, the life tenant, which would be you, has to sign the deed. So the trustee cannot
Let's
just.
say I want to sell it, for example.
Then you just sign the deed together with the trustee as a life tenant.
And for example, your trustee is the one who controls the money, right?
You can use that money to buy new home, apartment, whatever it is that's
But your
going
trustee is gonna handle that. right?
yes, they have to be basically at the closing.
What's the catch? What is the other side of trust?
Okay.
That
So hold on, she had another question that I want to answer.
The other
You said,
question was,
if
do you
have a
still need
trust,
the
do
will?
You still need the will. I encourage people to do both because the trust requires you to transfer property, okay? Whether it's by deed, whether it's by opening up a bank account, you have to take an extra step. The will, I kind of treat it like a catch-all. What if there's something that you didn't transfer into the trust? People inherit things. I don't know. An extreme example is you played the lottery today and then something happened to you tomorrow.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So
just
I
do both.
still encourage to keep a will. If you don't want to do it, then I tell you the risks of not doing it, and then we just do the trust. What's the catch?
Can I just ask the question quickly?
Yeah.
sure.
It's created, if it's a house as LLC as your primary residence, do you still have to create the trust and include it in there?
Good question. Your
What was
house.
the question? If the house is under LLC, is your primary residence, it's not under you, do you still have to include that in the trust?
So
Yeah, if you're the owner of the LLC.
I would say yes. I would say we'll work on how we can formulate that. We can make the trust a member of the LLC, or we can work with it. I disagree with people that put their own primary residence in an LLC because I don't know if an LLC would allow you to apply for certain property tax exemptions. Because when we do the trust, the city, whoever, they recognize that this is a trust that allows you to live here and treat it as your primary residence. And so for purposes of like the senior citizens property tax exemption or whatever, they still recognize you as the owner that's eligible for these exemptions. But with an LLC, I don't know if that's always, I don't I don't know if it's right, if it's on the right track with regards to those benefits that you're still preserving if you do that irrevocable trust.
So irrevocable trust is the best trust for in many ways. In many ways.
Yes, in many ways. And you know what? And now segue into your question because you said, "What's the catch?" I can't really think of like a disadvantage that is greater than the benefits that you're reaping.
What's the cost? What's the cost of creating a trust?
Yeah, I'll give you a range.
Yeah, give me a range.
It could be, again, depending on how many properties we're funding the trust with, I'll say a range from like 4 to 10,000 as far as legal fees. Okay?
And what are the yearly annual fees? Is there anything like that?
If you come back to an attorney to ask for an update, depending on what needs to be done, you know, some people they want to redo the whole will. Then that's, you know, and a will is not 4,000. I'm saying 4,000 if you're doing the whole package.
So it's one-time pay, that's it.
No,
Yes, I understand. Because some people,
I've heard that, I'm sorry, when you create a trust, don't you create a social security?
Yeah,
And then you have to do yearly income tax?
Right. Just like
So
you
you
do,
have to,
just like you do your own taxes. The irrevocable Medicaid Asset Protection Trust is also called a Grantor Trust, and it's under the Internal Revenue Code, the IRC, right? You're allowed, as a grantor, you're allowed to file your income taxes. Let's say you have income from that residence or whatever. It's still as if it's your income, so you get taxed on an individual level versus on the trust level, which is much higher. So, yes, you have a responsibility to report whatever financial, you know, situation you have, but it's not something that is, you know, not done. Like your CPA, your accountant, you'll know how to handle that.
And if you have rental,
To answer your question, I
Yeah.
think the catch is it's irrevocable. You can't say, I changed my mind.
You're right.
You're right, right? So that's the catch.
But, so a famous response from a lawyer is depends, okay? Yes, irrevocable is you cannot change it, okay? But if you and I sit down and we draft your trust, I'm gonna show you in the trust document what you are still able to do, okay? Yes, your trustee has to be involved, but it's not that you have control, you have benefits from it. I don't want to get into like too much in depth on the law and everything, but if it's a must, it's necessary to revoke that irrevocable trust, there are ways. It's just it's you have to have everybody that's involved in the trust fund board, okay? I would say yes, it's irrevocable. If you're doing it, don't think that you can change it. Right. But, you know, again, lawyer answer, it depends.
yeah.
They say
So
that if
there
you
will
can-
be legal fees, right? There will be accounting fees, which does, again, cost and benefits have to be evaluated because people live longer, thank God, and the longer you live, the more chances you take with your health, etc. Right? So.
Question, if you live in New York and you move to, let's say, Florida, do you have to redo the trust or is it long?
So we can keep that trust. I've done transfers in other states, but I always tell my clients, look, you have to speak with a local attorney. I can't, you know, I can guide you as far as New York law because that's where I'm licensed. I'm not licensed in Florida, California, whatever. So make sure, and I've dealt with attorneys in other states because the client or clients had properties there and here. It's just a matter of coordination, and that the client is not relying completely on a person who's just licensed
So you
in
can
one.
include the assets in another state?
We
like
can,
where you
yeah.
can. And a medical proxy is very different from the...
Medical proxy, I think, is different,
You
right?
guys want me to get into that?
I don't
The
know.
medical
It's a
proxy
different- I
and
think it's a-
power of
it's a
attorney and all of that.
But usually you can, it's all included, right? Because my parents did it in a irrevocable trust.
Right.
We spoke about medical proxies
Good.
and wills. It
Good.
was like all
Excellent.
part of the whole package.
Excellent. Whoever that attorney was, did a, you know, that's how I would do it. So, just to talk about like what's
A lot of people are scared to go to attorneys, whatever, because they do not know what.
They should be
Yeah.
scared not doing it.
Well,
Exactly.
first of all, husbands and wives may not be on the same page,
100%.
right? So
cannot
some
touch that.
people think that they're gonna live forever. Secondly, so there could be like where couple themselves is not on the same financial wavelength.
Okay, mindset, right.
Right. So what? So question number one, range-wise, if a person came to you, you said that the trust with will be costing $4,000 to $10,000 range.
So package is
Yeah.
trust, will, healthcare proxy, power of attorney.
Cool. Which seems
Yeah,
reasonable
you're
to me
getting four
personally. But,
documents, and these are significant documents.
and then you keep a copy, the person gets a copy, right? You will becoming a steward for that person ultimately. Let's say I lose my copy of the documents.
You as the lawyer?
I don't like to keep originals.
Okay, so it's
Okay.
with the person.
I encourage you to keep it.
Okay.
Not in safe deposit.
Well,
No.
no. With the safe deposit, because when you
In a
pass-
visible place.
Yeah.
if you actually die and safe deposit, even if it's to join, the joint owner cannot go inside. So this is
I'm glad someone here who knows.
Yeah, one
Yes.
more time, Ira. One more time.
So even if it's a joint safe deposit box, if the state notifies the bank that the owner passed away, the joint owner cannot go inside of the safe
Unless they go
deposit.
to the court.
They seal it and then they have to go to the court to obtain the surrogate for
It takes a
It takes
long
forever.
time.
And if the state is a trust is in that safe deposit, good luck getting to the
Yeah,
surrogate.
don't. I discourage. I don't mean to overstep and like step onto
okay,
other
it's okay.
people's territories, but I'm gonna tell you, it's. I personally, maybe you guys can educate me. I don't know what's the use of a safe deposit box. What is it
I
like?
think
what
it's
have
old
cash?
mentality.
No, I'll tell you.
But I remember behind
I
the
use it
family
for
being
jewelry.
robbed.
I
The
use
bank
it for
was robbed.
jewelry
You
because I
remember? It
don't
was like 20, 30 years ago.
No, it's not a cash, it's a jewelry.
The,
Because
the bank was
probably
robbed. And
jewelry.
the
It's
parents
probably
a lot
like
of
the
goods in
point.
there.
It's something that's like sentimental. It's like family
Tons of money.
jewelry.
They
But
want
putting
people based on it.
documents in there, I don't advise it. Like put it. If I have a client's original, it's locked away in a fireproof like metal cabinet. Again, I don't like to keep originals. I think it should stay with the client.
So people have to have a fireproof deposit box somewhere at
Yes,
home
and-
for
But
documents.
you have lists.
A file
You have-
cabinet.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
you
But
have copies, yeah.
But I think it's a good idea to start doing like a
No,
standing
because I was
document,
asking.
even if it's not original.
Да, но вы видите, будут знать, куда идти, к какому логу.
Well,
No, for the will, to
now-
probate the will.
For the
To
trust-
probate the
trust
will,
is
you
on.
need the court requires original will and death certificate. Trust is a contract.
Okay.
You don't want to lose it. Keep it in a
But-
safe
Sometimes
place.
when you're ready from
Yeah.
But no, if you go to the bank, they scan it for you, so they have always the copies and official,
Okay.
because no one keeps originals.
Depends on the complexity of the trust. Okay. If it's a trust that holds an investment property where there's rental income or anything that has like this rolling, if it's your house and you live there, there's no tenants there, you're paying your bills just as you did before, that's a simpler concept, right? But if you have property in there that's it's an investment property, you have tenants, you have things going on, just like a property manager would come in, collect rent, so on and so forth, that's essentially what the trustee's responsibility is. Okay, they have a bank account, checks,
So it's considered their income?
no, that's the trust income.
They have a separate EIN number.
And you, in the trust, under the trust, you are allowed to collect income. Okay, you're not allowed to collect the principal, which is the value of what you've transferred into the trust. But the income, you're supposed to live. You're supposed to have. Yes,
So the
that's
question,
one of the benefits.
so the question, the trustees, what the responsibilities and also what rights?
So again, depends on the language of the trust, right? Responsibilities is they are a fiduciary. The definition of a fiduciary is they have to act in the best interest of the grantor, of the beneficiaries, which during his life is the grantor, the person who transferred the property, right? So they have an obligation to act as a fiduciary. Obviously, if they violate that obligation, they have consequences. Okay, we're talking about litigation, court, you know, depending on the
So
severity,
between
criminal,
the,
you know.
so it's between you and the trustee.
Right.
Okay.
If, as far as what their benefit is, number one, if they are heirs, meaning they inherit when the grantor passes away, that's their benefit, right? So they're also, as a fiduciary, they're acting for the benefits of the grantor. They're also for, you know, themselves. They have to not ruin the property, take care of the property, you know, all of that. They are allowed for compensation. Okay, they're allowed because sometimes it's like a job maintaining
And it's
everything.
also discussed in.
Everything is a contract.
And can it be more than one trustees?
Yes.
More than one? Is there a
Um,
limit to how many?
I wouldn't want it to be more than two. Okay, I prefer one, and one is backup. A lot of times people are like, you know, we want to keep everything equal, we want to treat everybody the same, you know, it's whatever, two. The problem with having, you know, two is if there's a difference in opinion on how to handle things, what are they going to do then? So it depends on who the trustee is, who you decide to choose. What I've also seen is there are financial institutions that act as trustees, which is more neutral. I don't know if people want to do that with their, you know, it's an option. Okay.
What age do you recommend? What age do you recommend to start thinking about the revocable? 59, 64?
I
I
would
don't
say
know.
like mid-50s. Mid-50s, because we also have to think about disability. You know, who mentioned it? Like if we stop working at 59, and it's due to a disability, right? And we're gonna need those benefits to start kicking in. We're gonna need that trust set up. So like mid-50s, I would say.
Ниночка, значит, пожалуйста, give us your contact information. What's your phone? How to reach you? Where you are?
Say it on the video.
Going on YouTube?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I hope you're not doing it from your home.
No, she
No,
has
I'm
an
not. I
office.
have an office. So, my phone number is 718-551-2430. Do you want my office address? Come visit.
Where location wise?
I'm in
Queens?
Briarwood.
Briarwood? Okay. Well, sounds great. Thank you so much. We're very grateful to Nina Khaimov for coming and being gracious with her time and education. It's one of the things and pillars of the BJW book club that we continue to learn about finance, health, and just general growth mindset and learning. Thank you, Ninochka. A round of applause, everybody.
So the pooled income trust, what happens to the income after you pass away? It goes
Excellent
to
question. So it's
not-for-profit?
because so you have a
your
contract.
kids don't get it?
So you have a contract. You have to read that contract. I think a lot of times it's like there's a percentage. 50% goes to them. 50. You know, you have to look at who you're right. But you're not gonna put hundreds of thousands of dollars. You're gonna get that money to use it. It's just gonna be from the pooled income trust. It's not going to be directly from your source of income. And because you're kind of like bypassing it that way, it creates eligibility. Okay, so, and yes, there are fees involved. I think every month, you know, again, depending on who you contract with, there's a fee. You know, the ones that I know, they charge like $100 a month. So let's say there's excess $900. So, you know, you can keep whatever amount Medicaid allows you to have as income.
Which you said is 2,000.
Whatever, I used an example, it changes, so I don't really want to tie myself down to a number, but let's say there's $900 excess, right? That goes into the pooled income trust. The pooled income trust holds their fee, $100, let's say, and the 800, usually in the form of like a debit card, comes to you for use. You have to know what you use it for. Most of the time, groceries, like things that are necessities to you. Okay, but we can talk about that more and explore.
And for more, please prepare for the $10,000.